The latest crisis in US-Iran relations really stems from Trump's unilateral withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal. But what exactly is the deal? Why is it so important? And why did Trump withdraw from it? Before I answer these questions, I should say that, all of the attention is on Iran developing a nuclear weapon. However, it should be made clear in the first place that it is Israel that is the driving force behind nuclear proliferation in the Middle East. It's an open secret that Israel went nuclear in the 1960s. Actually, ever since, the Arab states have been calling for a Middle East nuclear weapons-free zone. But this has been frustrated by the US and Israel over and over again. The thing is, if Israel can have nuclear weapons, why not Iran? Why not Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and so on? So there's a serious risk of nuclear arms race in the most unstable region in the world. So to the question, what is the Iran nuclear deal? Well, the deal was agreed in 2015 by Iran and the major world powers, the US, Russia, China, and what are called the EU3, France, Germany, and Britain. And it was the product of years of painstaking negotiations. It agreed the lifting of sanctions on Iran in return for restrictions on Iran's abilities to develop a nuclear weapon. Actually, under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, non-nuclear states are guaranteed the right to produce nuclear materials for peaceful purposes, to build nuclear power stations, but not nuclear weapons. However, under the deal, which is officially known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, Iran was forced to concede its right under heavy pressure from sanctions, which were really biting into its economy and damaging the livelihoods of the people. The JCPOA also marked a shift on the part of Obama, who agreed to partially lift sanctions. So why was the JCPOA important? Well, the JCPOA was really a great victory for diplomacy, a significant step forward for Iran, for the Middle East as a whole, and indeed for the world. For Iran, the partial lifting of sanctions opened a new chapter, allowing its re-engagement with the world, giving space for development and diplomacy. For the Middle East, it resolved a major source of nuclear tension, which, if, following on from this, progress could be made on a nuclear weapons-free zone, this would really do a great deal to help build confidence in regional cooperation and give a tremendous boost to the peace process. The JCPOA really stood out as a remarkable achievement in great power cooperation. Of course, you might say that nuclear weapon states will pull together to prevent other states from becoming nuclear armed, and this was a part of the JCPOA. But on the other hand, there is the famous African saying, when elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. Well, the JCPOA, the elephants stopped fighting and the grass could start to grow in the Middle East. Now, why then did Trump withdraw from the deal? So Trump pulled out of the deal in May 2018. His complaint was that the agreement did not deal with Iran's support for the various militias around the region in Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, and so on. Iraq was starting to regain influence, and by resuming sanctions, Trump's aim was to knock it back so as to reassert US influence over the Middle East. But there's also the bigger picture, because under Trump, the focus of US foreign policy has shifted from the so-called war on terror to the so-called great power competition with Russia and China. With this shift, the last thing Trump wants to do is to be cooperating with Russia and China, nor does he want Europe to be cooperating with Russia and China. So the JCPOA had to go. And to force other powers to abandon the deal, Trump started imposing secondary sanctions on countries which continue to trade with Iran. This only had the opposite effect, because it meant that the powers started to work even more closely together to find a way around the restrictions in order to try and keep Iran to the deal. So now Trump is attempting to use the crisis he initiated with Soleimani's assassination to pressure the EU3 and Russia and China to finally break with the deal. Iran, which is so much weaker militarily, is also resorting to leverage, saying it would no longer be bound by the limits on nuclear processing. Nevertheless, we should be clear, Iran remains within the frame of the deal and is not doing anything illegal. So now France, Germany and Britain are in a predicament. Do they stand up to Trump's bullying and stick by the JCPOA, or do they cave in and let go of years of negotiation and diplomacy? This dilemma has Britain's top echelons in knots. The Foreign Office suggests Britain essentially still supports the deal alongside France and Germany, but Boris Johnson is heading off in a different direction, calling for a Trump deal. A Trump deal would be no deal. Trump has a whole list of demands, but where is the negotiation? Where is the room for reciprocation? What Trump wants is capitulation, so as to ensure US influence over the Middle East remains intact. The thing is, he may go to the lengths of regime change to get this. So finally, Europe has to stand up now to the United States. Trump's pursuit of America first knows no bounds. He's pulled out of treaty after treaty. He sweeps aside international law, UN rulings, not just with the recent killing, but also declaring Israel's occupation of the West Bank to be legal. The JCPOA is hanging by a thread, and the world is at a crossroads. Britain's position is crucial, so we have to stand up to make sure Johnson makes the right choices, to do all he can to save the deal and prevent further steps towards war in Iran. The situation is on a knife edge. The risks of war again in the Middle East, of nuclear proliferation, and indeed of the breakdown of world diplomacy with an unrestrained US are just far too great.